Hi, I'm Hilda Andres, and I'm going to read The Olive Tree by Elsa Marston, illustrated by 𝘭𝘪 I chose this book because I was Googling books for children about Lebanon. Lebanon is the country where I grew up in the Mediterranean, and olive trees were all over. So when we would go like traveling up in the mountains, you can see all the landscaping was a lot of these olive trees, and they were all doing different shapes and looked like they were dancing. So I wanted, and it's also about a story about peace between two neighbors, and I thought it had a nice message. So let's start. For many years, the house next to Samir's had stood empty. What a pity, his mother often said. The family who lived there had gone away during the Troubles because they were different from most of the people in the village. But now, thank goodness, the long war was over and they were coming back. So this is pretty cool. Do you guys play with your neighbor friends? And it would be nice if your house next door is empty and now all of a sudden you're getting new people in there. It would be exciting. So let's look on the next page. Shaded by the old olive tree, Samir leaned on the stone wall between the two houses and watched eagerly. The neighbors were moving in, carrying everything needed to bring a house back to life. What would you guys bring to when you were moving to a house? Like, what would bring a house back to life? Now, it looks like they were carrying some baskets of like sheets and things. He's carrying a rug. There's a donkey over there. They're cleaning up here. So think about it. What would you bring with you to bring a house back to life? He didn't remember anything about the family, but wouldn't it be wonderful if they had a boy? Oh, he hoped so. Two boys could have such fun roaming the mountainside, kicking a ball, eating ripe figs, and climbing on the olive trees. I guess they didn't have Xbox back then. Samir looked up at the gnarled old branches. They were good branches for climbing, and they still bore the best olives in Lebanon. That's what his mother always said, as she prepared them in jars with lemon and salt. Samir's family had enjoyed those olives for as long as he could remember. So can you eat an olive out of an olive tree strictly? Like go to an olive tree and get an olive? You can, but it's so bitter, it does not taste good at all. So you have to usually cure olives, and I guess she did them with lemon and salt for you to be able to eat them. The neighbors soon settled into their house. They were always polite, but they rarely said more than a few words, and they never returned visits. And they did not have a boy. They had a girl named Muna, about the same age as Samir. He often saw her playing in her yard or helping her mother, but she never even looked his way. What's interesting about that, I have an uncle named Samir and an aunt named Muna. So I thought that was kind of interesting. As the weather cooled, the green olives started to ripen. Some fell to the ground, and as usual, Samir gathered them in a basket. So you can see right here, Samir picking out the olives from the tree that they fell down. And again, you wouldn't, like I saw this thing in Italy where they would put nets underneath so when the olives would come, they can just gather them that way. So I guess you don't go and get olives from the tree to do something with them. You wait for them to fall. Wow, this is a very colorful page. One morning, he noticed Muna standing at the wall watching him. At last, she spoke. Those are our olive trees, you know, ours. Samir faced her. Then they're on our land, he said. But the tree is on our land, said Muna. It has belonged to my family for 100 years. They do live a long time. So what would you do if the olives were on your yard, the tree is from another yard? Whose are they? Yes, that was true. The old tree stood firmly on Muna's side of the wall. Over the years, however, some of its branches had twisted and bent until they stretched far across the wall. They dropped the best olives in Lebanon on Samir's side. Listen, said Samir, all the time you people were away, we took care of this tree. We have a right to the olives. But now we're back, said Muna, and we'll take care of it. We'll have the olives. Samir scowled at Muna. Then he leaned over the wall and dumped his basket of olives into her yard and walked away. Would you have done that? Is that rude? How do you think he was feeling? Look at his face. I think he was mad. After that, the olives went on dropping in Samir's yard. So the olives kept falling. He didn't pick them up because he was mad at her. And she didn't come to pick them up because they were in his yard. So they just sat there and, I guess, rotted. But nobody ever gathered them. Wow, look at that page. That looks like fun. One night, a fierce autumn storm rolled over the mountains with blazing lightning and booms of thunder. One terrible bolt seemed to shake the whole world. At daybreak, Samir rushed outside to see what had happened. What do you guys think happened? All right. The olive tree was gone. Nothing was left but a shattered stump. Pieces of pale wood lay scattered all over the 2 yards. Even the stone wall was broken. So look, there's the stone wall broken, the olive tree with all its funky branches all over. Samir and his family stood on their side, and Muna and her family stood on theirs. No one spoke as they gazed at the remains of the tree. After a while, the grown-ups drifted sadly back to their houses. Oh wait, there's a lady in there, and she's going like that. I don't know if you can see that. Samir's eyes were stinging. What does that mean when your eyes are stinging? How he would miss that tree. I think he was almost crying. Then he noticed Muna, still standing in her yard. Slowly she came over to the broken stump of the tree. Samir started to leave, but as she began to speak, he paused. They always told me about this tree, Muna said quietly. It seemed to me like our home, which we nearly lost, and now it's gone. Samir wanted to tell her, your family didn't have to go away. You could have stayed here, and we would have been friends and have shared the olives. But it would do no good to say that right now. Instead, Samir looked around at the scraps of wood strewn all over the yard of both families. They would have a big job, he thought, cleaning up all that wood. It was pretty cool. The parents just went inside and didn't even worry about cleaning the mess. So who's cleaning the mess? Look. Again, he started toward his house, but once more he paused and looked back. Muna was still there, and she made Samir think of the last thing he could do for his old friend, the olive tree. Well, he said to Muna, at least you'll have plenty of firewood this winter. Samir picked up a couple of the large chunks laying in his yard, stepped over the broken wall, and laid them next to Muna's house. Back and forth he went, carrying the wood to Muna's yard. Then turning, he stopped short in surprise. What do you think the surprise was? Let's find out. Muna had gone over to Samir's yard. There, she too was picking up pieces of the wood, and she was piling them by his house. So he was piling wood by her house, and then she started piling wood by his house. That's kind of cool. So the two kept working, each on the other's yard. Without words, they cleared up the olive wood, each stacking it neatly against the other's house. As Samir worked, another idea came to him. Maybe they could plant a new olive tree by the wall, a tree that both families could share. Isn't that a great idea? Yay, last page, people. Finally, Samir went home, and there, on the chair by the door, was a pile of perfect olives, carefully saved from among the withering leaves. The end. Thank you for listening.